On today's podcast, we sit down with the innovative and visionary Jesse Kirshbaum. Jesse stands at the crossroads of tech, music, brands, and culture, crafting unforgettable partnerships that shape the future. He shares his journey from representing artists to creating authentic collaborations with huge names like Spotify and McDonald's. We also dive into the art of aligning core values between brands and artists, and his insights on the evolution of brand partnerships. Plus, discover the secrets behind iconic projects and how new technologies like Web 3.0 and AI are changing the music landscape. Stay tuned. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Rich Ezra and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we have the privilege of hosting Jesse Kirshbaum, a visionary and maverick at the intersection of music, technology, and brands. We discover how Jesse has navigated his career path to become a leading figure in forging authentic and impactful collaborations that transcend traditional endorsements. Get insights into how brand partnerships are becoming the unsung heroes in an artist's revenue stream, and why technology is the great equalizer in creating expansive partnerships. Discover Jesse's vision on the future of music as technologies like Web 3 and AI begin to transform the way music is created and consumed. We also delve into fascinating campaigns like Keurig and McDonald's collaboration with Latin artist Lunai, and how these integrative approaches create authentic connections with niche cultural markets. This episode is chock full of rich insights and inspiration for anyone in the music industry. You definitely don't want to miss it. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey, Insiders! Are you an aspiring musician, artist, band, or future music business professional looking to take your career to the next level? Well, look no further. At MUBUTV, we offer personalized career counseling and coaching designed specifically for folks like you.
Imagine having both of us by your side, guiding you through every step of your music journey. Our sessions are tailored to meet your unique needs, focusing on critical aspects of your music career, such as refining your songs, defining your artist story, identifying your target audience, and enhancing your social media presence, just to name a few.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your existing career, we've got you covered. Our comprehensive approach ensures you get insights on everything from live shows to branding and marketing strategies. We understand that every artist is unique. That's why our coaching is personalized just for you.
And here's the best part. We offer flexible coaching packages that fit any budget. Choose from individual sessions ranging from 30 to 90 minutes, or save with our discounted 4-session packages. Experience custom sessions designed to enhance your music career, with opportunities for greater savings when you choose bundled sessions. Investing in your musical journey has never been more accessible.
Imagine the clarity and direction you'll gain after just one session. The feedback on your songs, the strategies to grow your audience, and the confidence to perform live, all tailored just for you.
So why wait? Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Join us for your free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com for a transformative coaching experience that will elevate your music career. That's book.mubutv.com. So Rich, Muse Expo 2025 is coming up this year. It's the 25th anniversary. Super excited. We're going to be there, and we're hoping all of our insiders will be there.
Absolutely. This is the 25th anniversary of my absolute favorite music conference. I met Sat Bisla, I think it was like 26 years ago, before he even did the first one. I have been to every single
That's incredible.
one
It's
that they have
unbelievable.
done, in the 25 years. I have moderated panels for him at the conference. It has been, an educational journey for me. It's been an incredible conference that provides wonderful insight and wonderful kinds of information to people who attend it. We hope that all of you will join us there. It's coming up March 17th, 18th, and 19th at the Castaways in Burbank. And to learn more about it, you just got to go to MuseExpo. That's MuseExpo.net.
Yeah, it's a great conference. I always love when you and Sat get together, because I know I always joke about it. I always relate you guys to like the Oracle inside of the movie The Matrix, because you guys, between both of you, know everyone. As far as I'm concerned, you guys know everybody in the industry, and it's amazing. They have an amazing staff besides Sat. You've got Monty, Joe, Dusty, Sat's wife, William, all the people from Castaways. Muse Expo has been a big integral part of our success in our career. This is probably like our 10th one, maybe 11th one, I think, that we've been to recording, and they've been an incredible partner to us for many, many years.
Absolutely. We can't thank Sat enough for being that partner. He's been an incredibly supportive. Sat is also somebody who believes in the value of education and has dedicated his life to educating artists, to helping artists, to exposing them. And Sat also is somebody who, unlike a lot of other people in the world, sees the value of music on an international basis.
Right.
Which
is the focus of Muse Expo.
Exactly. It's called the United Nations of Music Conferences. And there's a reason for that, because you're going to hear from people from England, from Germany, from France, from Australia, from other parts of the world that come to this conference. It's a very, very important conference for that reason. And there's a lot of great value that you will get if you attend.
Yeah, and we have some amazing guests that are lined up. Adam Brodsky, Adrian Sosa, Alexandria Patsabas, which is like, the goddess of all music supervisors.
Yeah.
Ben Dorenfeld, which we've had on the show before, Eitan Ben-Horon. The list goes on and on and on. So we urge you guys to go check out museexpo.net. That's MUSEXPO.net, and pick up your tickets. It's coming up soon, and we'd love to see you there.
Absolutely. Definitely check it out. That's museexpo.net on March 17th, 18th, and 19th. We hope to see you there. Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is the CEO of the Nue Agency, Jesse Kirshbaum. This, I thought, Eric, was a fascinating and insightful look into how music, brands, culture, and technology are all emerging.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times on the surface, it looks like just, somebody is endorsing a product. It's not that way at all. And this was what was so interesting about the conversation with Jesse, is that, he talked about what makes campaigns work, what ones don't work, and why. And one of the things I thought that was most fascinating about the conversation with him is how he spoke about the authenticity that is needed and demanded in the culture of today around collaborations. That, successful partnerships are built on authenticity and the alignment with core values, that provide value to consumers through great storytelling, through an alignment of, understanding who and what the audience is that you're trying to reach with that brand. This requires a lot of sensitivity of, it's not just about, putting somebody with, will you endorse our product?
Right.
It's understanding the core values of not only the brand, but of the artist themselves that you're asking to represent that. Will it come across? And,
is there a synergy?
Is there a synergy?
Is there a symbiotic relationship there that makes it all work?
Precisely. And I remember, another great marketer, Steve Stout, who has an agency in New York, who has talked about the importance of that. He has a great book called The Tanning of America, where he speaks about how, how nuanced that is, where sometimes it can go wrong. Sometimes you think the brand and the artist are right, and on paper it seems like but for whatever reason, and you don't learn this sometimes until you've done it, it just doesn't connect.
Right.
The wrong artist at the wrong time, or the right artist at the wrong time.
Or maybe it's the public that it's like the public decides with music what's going to be good, what's going to be successful, and what's not.
That's
Pete Gambarg talked about that in his episode.
Yes.
About, there's some things that I thought were great signings, and it's just the public speaks, and maybe that's what it is too.
In any kind of hits-driven business, you can look at all the products of Nike. You can, is every single one of their shoes a huge success? No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle.
Yeah. One of the other areas that I thought was very interesting, because it applies to our audience about what they should all be doing, is networking and relationships. Jesse underscores the importance of building relationships and engaging in partnerships to foster growth and trust in the industry. This is no different than us that are out there right now that are musicians that are trying to make a name for themselves and trying to get out there it's networking. Networking is everything. Along these lines, Jesse's talking about, the idea of networking with brands and trying to see how those collaborations can take place. I think the same thing applies with networking that you guys are listening to right now, that you should be networking in any capacity that you can, whether it's an event that's happening locally in your area, whether you live in LA, Nashville, New York, wherever you live at, you should be taking advantage of networking and building that network.
Without a doubt, I think that's crucial in any kind of business, especially one on such radically changing terms and turf, if you will, as what we're talking about. And especially in this one, because you're talking about music, brands, culture, technology. It's
a lot of different things. And that's why I talked about that synergy. So with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Jesse Kirshbaum.
Jesse, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I've seen what you've been up to over the past year or two, and it's exciting. You guys are growing. You guys are becoming the gold standard of excellence when it comes to the music business podcast circuit.
Well, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that. I want to start this conversation out. You are in a very distinct line of work, which is at the intersection where tech, music, and brands and culture come together. When did you know that this was going to be your professional career path?
Right out of college, knew I wanted to be in the music business, was interning in music offices from Sony Music in London to Billboard and throwing events and parties. And I thought that digital music was going to be this craze. I was in college during the Napster era, and I felt like the DJ and electronic music just had a huge global opportunity. And it didn't end up happening then. Right when I graduated from college, I got a job at an electronic record label, and I saw we were giving away more albums than we were selling. So I just realized that, this wasn't the actual opportunity. So I was thinking about going to law school, and then I ended up pivoting to being an agent, and I was working at a boutique agency, and I was representing artists, and I was just learning all facets of the business from being an agent. And I ended up signing the Clips when I was 22. They were signed to Pharrell's label. They went to number 2 on the pop charts. We toured with Nelly. We toured with Jay-Z all throughout Europe. We toured with 50 Cent in colleges. And I just was learning a lot from the artist lens. And then in kind of my late 20s, I moved to California. I worked at a video game startup as the entertainment director of marketing, doing the artist partnerships. And I started to realize there was a big opportunity in the technology side and the intersection between technology and music and artists. And then that company ended up not succeeding. They went belly up, and I moved back to New York and kind of had what I call a quarter life crisis before I started Nue Agency and decided I wanted to do things very different. And I came to New York, and I was working on my friend's couch. He had a company called DigiWax, and he said, come start your business, work from here, and I've got an artist we can work on together. But while in New York at this era, this was the start of kind of Web 2, I noticed there was like tweet-ups and Video 2.0 meetups and all this kind of digital world, but there wasn't anybody speaking to the music and digital side of things. And so I started bringing people together. I started doing these digital events. I started to realize that as the music business was shunning these tech companies, I was really feeling like tech was going to be the savior of the music business. So I befriended these companies. I did an award show honoring them all. I had a event series called Sound Control, and it was great. It was leading to brand deals for my clients, but it also was a really exciting way to kind of integrate myself with these next generation of great tech companies. I was hired by Spotify to help launch in the college market in the US, and I was working with them when they had 5 employees out here. And I just learned a lot from these tech founders and realized that this was a great place to be. And then eventually when I pivoted my agency from representing artists to working with brands, I always thought that technology was going to be the great equalizer and the exponential component to a brand partnership. It's artist, it's tech layer, and it's brand. And when you bring that kind of alchemy together with a great idea, timed at the right time, it can be really expansive. And so technology is like an exponential component to all of these partnerships. And so I really kind of try to stay in that intersection or cross section between music, technology, and brands, and where they all intersect.
Excellent. Jesse, so great to have you on the show. I wanted to ask you, you've made it clear that the future of partnerships lies in moving beyond traditional endorsements to forging authentic, impactful collaborations. And given your unique position at the intersection of these industries and cultural movements, what do you believe are the most crucial elements that drive a truly successful partnership?
Brand partnerships are becoming the unsung hero in an artist's P&L. It's really an exciting growth area in the industry, and I think it didn't get a lot of credit for a long time. The labels or the traditional kind of approach to these brand partnerships was that it's selling out, but it's changed a lot, especially in the past 5 years, but really in the past 10. And what's happened are like some of the biggest stories in music are artists launching their own brands, right? Beats and Dre. Dr. Dre makes more money or made more money with Beats and had more impact than all of his monster hit records combined times multiples. Same thing with like Selena Gomez and Rare Beauty or Rihanna and Fenty. These are huge, huge wins. So I do think that these partnerships there's multiple ways to do it. You can partner with a bigger company. You can create your own brand. You can license and do a royalty. But what makes it successful is if it's authentic and if there's an alignment and it feels like there's a value add to the consumers, but also that it's got great storytelling, a fun hook. You know, there's no exact formula to what success looks like. It really depends on the artist, the brand, the timing, the objective. It's a lot of variables that come into this, but it really, when done right, it becomes like a 1 + 1 = 11 formula where so much money and impact can be made. Music becomes this kind of Trojan horse that can put you in any room and can travel faster than the speed of light. But the truth of the matter is that music is in many ways the door opener to be able to create relevance and do all sorts of other components. If it's selling products, if it's selling a message, if it's connecting with audience in new ways to create new conversations, it's really like a important part of what a musician and artist does. But it can open the doors to so much more opportunity. And I feel like the brand partnership space, as it evolves, as it becomes easier to do, as more and more brands are interested in working with musicians and creators during this kind of creator economy boom, artists can integrate in numerous ways. And it's exciting because, first of all, consumers have a huge passion point when it comes to music. And then also musicians can shift culture. They have so many insights and passion points themselves and overlap with fan base and things that they can bring to the equation. I don't think it's for every artist, right? I don't feel like every artist should be a creative director. I think it's a unique skill set that's not for everybody. And I think artists can lend expertise and can lend insights and can be great spokespeople and can translate a message in a way that's going to connect because their fan base is passionate. But it might not always be the right fit to be this kind of brand CEO or create your own brand or be a creative director. But if they've got a team around that, or if they have a good agency, or there are agencies that brands can work with that can help translate that message between an artist and a brand, it's a very impactful marketing vehicle. And I think more and more brands are realizing it. And I think more and more artists are realizing that a cosign from a brand can be very valuable and can open up new doors and can be a great marketing vehicle. And if you look at this history, it's kind of wild because the history of music and brands hasn't been that deep, right? Like the first music and brand partnership was really Rolling Stones and Rice Krispies in the 1950s or 60s, and it was like laughable. And even like in the past 10 years, you would never have thought that Bruce Springsteen would be doing Super Bowl commercials or Bob Dylan would have his own whiskey. But now, in many ways, this is like a huge relevance point and a huge cool factor for ways that artists can connect with brands and fans can feel closer to artists.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's also a way to reach out to a larger audience. I take the Coldplay campaign that's going on with DHL right now as we speak. It's just an interesting marriage of that whole idea and just branching out to a larger audience as well, too. So it's a benefit to everybody.
And Coldplay is like the master of the cosign, right? They'll
Yeah.
hop on a record with BTS, they'll hop on a record with Jay-Z, they'll hop on a record with, they know, with Ed Sheeran, they know that like collaborations is a great way to grow audience. But now that they're doing it with brands and connecting with like DHL, these are bigger than the artists. There's more people that know who Oreos are than any artist in the world. And I'll tell you this, Oreos have global distribution and are massive in terms of reach, in terms of touch points, in terms of in terms of like different cities that they're available, different likability, understand people know it. So yeah, these brands are big collaboration opportunities for artists, and Coldplay is a master of this. And doing a deal with DHL would probably have been laughable or like head scratching before. But now it's probably helping them move the needle and stay relevant, right? We're talking about them right now.
Yeah, precisely. I want to stick on this theme and go a little deeper with you on what you're talking about. You've stated, Jesse, that your agency operates agnostically, bridging the gap between brands and artists. And, my question is, in an era where fans are increasingly skeptical of brand affiliations, how do you navigate that delicate balance of aligning the core values of both parties to create collaborations that not only resonate, but also stand out as genuinely impactful in the culture?
Yeah, where I sit, that's just very unique. It's a value add to kind of all facets of the business because I am agnostic. If you call CAA is going to give you a music strategy for CAA's artists. Sure, they can get you people outside of that, but we know where their priorities are. The same thing with a record label. If you're going to talk to one of these great record labels and they're talking about their brand partnerships, they're prioritizing their artists. And it would be the same thing with like a DSP, right? Spotify is going to give you a music strategy, but they're going through a record label and you're going to end up only being able to get media on their platform. What I do is look at the whole terrain, from the agencies to the management companies to the DSPs to the publications to all the different media outlets. And what I do is help brands figure out how to navigate this space with the path of least resistance, which is going to be most effective to them. So I'm presenting with my trend reports, with my newsletter, with my music strategy, how best to navigate this business for what that brand wants to achieve. And my curation process and how we kind of approach this, it's a little bit of a secret sauce, but it's a combination of our own POV, seeing the marketplace and really giving strategy and perspective, as well as data and pulling the numbers, right? Because you know what artist is going to trend better with a brand. We can print out reports. We're going to look at where, if you want to impact a certain region, a certain demographic, a certain age, a certain marketplace, if you want to, touch a certain point in time, all of that data is extremely valuable. So we're looking at the data. And then the third thing is that we're looking at inside industry information. And that's why we have really good strategic relationships with the agencies, the record labels, the DSPs, the magazines, the publications, because we'll talk to all of them on a pretty regular basis. So we know that this artist is coming in cycle and this artist is bringing a perspective that might be interesting for this brand. We see the passion points. We have our heads wrapped around the entire business, and we can offer a brand a holistic, agnostic POV on how best to approach the marketplace. Plus, we're working with all of these different companies. So we're doing volume, we're doing expertise, we're able to negotiate different price points because, we're going to maybe book different things for different occasions. We really are able to help navigate the space. Plus, artists really like working with us because we're nimble, we're crafty, we're creative, we have a very good reach. And on top of that, I come from the background of representing artists. So I really understand, and what we do here is really understand the artist lens. So we're approaching these from, okay, we know what it's like to be an artist in the trenches and wanting, certain things or, expecting certain treatment when it comes to working with a brand or a promoter or an event. But also we can translate that to the brands who we've been working with for almost a decade as well, and just understand that brands require a certain level of hand-holding, a certain level of correspondence, a certain level of service that is beyond a traditional record label or traditional artist team. It really requires a very sophisticated traditional sense when it comes to servicing brands. Because look, let's be honest, a brand could bring a deal to 1,000 different artists. It's really, sometimes it's like, needs to be Chili's and Brian McKnight because it just feels that good. But the truth of the matter is, like, Chili's can bring that deal to a bunch of different R&B artists or a bunch of different artists in general if they want to do something in music. So they have a lot of optionality and a lot of control. And, sometimes artists are in their own little head and fiefdom in that, like, this is the biggest thing happening and that, like, a brand should be really lucky to work with them. And it's true, but it's also true that that brand could go plenty of different directions. And so they should also be willing to play ball. And so, yeah, I think a lot of these conversations would start off a little rough if they weren't going through a filter. And as we get it closer and closer to the moment that we shoot, or as the idea takes shape, it becomes a bit of an art and a science, because you want to be able to kind of lock in an idea that's mutually beneficial and also enticing to the fan. So I look at, like, the perfect deal as like a win-win-win, because in this day and age, it's really about artist to fan and then fan to fan, right? Like, that culture and that community is so powerful. So you want the fans to be excited. You want the fans to share the message. You want the fans to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of commerce and culture and communication. And so these deals only work if the fan is excited and in on that fourth wall, so to speak, of how these partnerships come to life. And so, yeah, it's a little on the nuanced side, and that's what we do at Nue Agency. But it's also, it's magic and lightning in a bottle when it's done right, and when fans really get into it and start carrying the message for the brand and the artist.
Jesse, you've spoken about the intersection of music, technology, and culture, particularly in relation to the work of Ian Rogers and Rick Rubin. How do you see these fields continuing to influence each other, especially as new technologies like Web3, AI, and others begin to play a bigger role in how music is created and consumed?
Yeah, that's a great question. They had a fantastic jam session and podcast together. Rick Rubin is just giving so many gifts back to this business when it comes to creativity and how it works and how he approaches it in his mind. And, he's the great minimizer, but he's also a great provocateur. And he also is a student of the game and is just really able to bring so much out of artists and creatives and executives and been doing it for so long, right? From the 80s in his dorm room in NYU to, what he's doing in Malibu these days. And Ian Rogers is another one of these just multi-generational music tech rock stars. Came from the early days of punk and built out the first websites for the Beastie Boys and was the early kind of man on the street cam guy for them to, what he's doing today. But I mean, building Topspin and then running Beats and selling that and then moving into, LVMH as an innovation officer. And then also now what he's doing at Ledger and Web3. He's seen so many facets of the, music and tech landscape and just understands that like what's going on right now in Web3 is another big boom in culture and technology. And to hear Rick, who's this kind of super producer, and Ian, who's this also creative force, jam on an ideological level about technology and how it influences culture and how culture influences technology, it's fascinating. And I think the answers are when they were having this conversation was pretty clear. They just didn't know what it was. They knew that like it was going to be a thing, but what the thing is going to be, they still weren't sure. So he was building at Ledger and he was building the kind of technology to make it safer and to kind of make it more of a space where there's growth and protection, but he wasn't sure how it was going to connect. And I think that what we're seeing here is like this year is going to be a year of growth for Web3, but in a way where you're not seeing the wires. I think we're going to see, Web3 come behind fan clubs and Web3 make the ticketing experience way better than the barcodes that Ticketmaster is giving you right now. It's going to become a much more robust system thanks to blockchain, thanks to Web3, thanks to the capabilities that this provides. But I don't think we're necessarily going to see the wires. I don't think you're going to know that your favorite fan club and your reward system is going to be powered by the blockchain. I don't think necessarily when you get a digital souvenir for your ticket and you're trading it or you're collecting it and it's this stamp that's unique to you and your ID and it's, minted and it's got a unique identity. I don't think you're going to say, wow, thank goodness for Web3 and crypto. I do think what's happening now with Web3 is going to be very good for the music business and another big opportunity, but I'm not going to be in this kind of like NFT world where it was attached to all of these different kind of cryptocurrencies. There will be opportunities there too. I mean, I think like that's a whole other side of what Web3 looks like. And I do think we're going to see tokens being mooned and artists launching tokenomics and all of that. And I think that there'll be some opportunities and some interesting conversations there. But I do think the really interesting area is in the kind of fundamental abilities that like Web3 can bring. I also think that like there's a world where we should be able to invest in a song together or how royalty payments could be tracked in a better way. Or, I do think there's a universe where like if we're finding an artist as a fan, we should be able to support them in a way that's not just like a Kickstarter, but actually in a way where you're part of the rise and seeing the upside in that as potentially a investor or kind of like token holder or, co-publisher, or, taking the music and creating your own generative AI. Like there's just a lot of interesting principles that Web3 represents. And I think that these are going to be factors in music because music sets the trends and music is at the cutting edge of this all. And, artists are universal and huge reach and can transcend boundaries. And it's a huge passion point, as I mentioned, of fans and consumers. So I do think that like music and Web3 is a very, very big conversation that's coming. And again, Ian is betting the farm on it, so to speak. And I think Rick Rubin is just a real student of the game. So he can go deep into a lot of different verticals, if it's health and wellness, if it's music creation, if it's Web3. So I just love that conversation because it's like old school hip hop meets new school technology, and it just kind of has a punk rock flair to it.
Hey, insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Eric, as an artist, what do you find are the most challenging aspects to a music career, especially when you're starting out?
Well, I think one of the first things is just trying to get the direction of who you are as an artist, where you want to go, where you want to be. And, we've talked about it on the show a lot. Who is your target audience? Who you are? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What do you think would resonate with an audience? And so those are some of the things that I would feel being a new artist. Obviously, what I know now is different because I know these things, but for people that are out there like our audience that don't have necessarily any direction to go would be the first things that I would start off with.
And having the songs that
Absolutely.
incorporate those elements that you're speaking of into it. That's so important today.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we started MUBUTV and why we started this new consulting service that we're offering to all of our insiders out there, because that is another one of the big things. I mean, that is the big thing, is like having the great songs. That's what it really starts off. Our friend Don Grierson always said, it always starts with a great song. So that's probably, besides putting together what your audience and what your target audience is the single most important thing. Where are your songs at currently today? Are you collaborating with people? Are you trying to go out to networking events where you can connect with other songwriters and stuff like that? So
yeah, and what are your strengths?
Exactly.
Are you a strong lyric writer? Are you a strong melody writer? Are you a strong musician, a player?
Right.
And it's really important to get really strong clarity on those issues before proceeding.
I totally agree, Rich. And, with our consulting services, we offer a myriad of different packages and we've made it super affordable for everybody. So, if you guys are interested out there in connecting with us on a coaching call, you can visit book.mubutv.com and start off with a free 15-minute discovery call.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We start with an initial 15-minute call where we can get a sense of who you are, what are the issues that you specifically have, right, and want to work on.
Exactly.
And we can go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we tailor everything to your needs. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. We kind of really want to get to know who you are as an artist, where you at today, what's the snapshot of you as an artist today, and then start trying to craft something that's tailor-made for you. So again, if you're interested, visit us at book.mubutv.com for your 15-minute discovery call.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think he's one of the most brilliant minds in terms of creativity. And, one thing, Jesse, that I want to talk to you about, I want to drill down on some of your specific campaigns. Your Keurig McDonald's campaign with reggaeton artist Lunai is a strong example of using music to connect with a niche cultural market. And the collaboration also aligned well with events like, Hispanic Heritage Month and National Coffee Day. Walk us through how you identified Lunai as the right fit for this campaign, and what factors did you consider in creating content that felt both authentic and engaging for this particular project?
Yeah, this was a fun one because Keurig Dr. Pepper had a partnership with McDonald's where they were launching a pod together called Mac Cafe at Home. And this was really focused on the Latin market. And they were making flavors for the Latin market, horchata, and different kind of experiences for coffee that they wanted to kind of be in the homes of a Latin demographic. And we saw that this demo was exploding in America in particular, but on a global scale. You could see it in the music. Like Bad Bunny was, the top streaming artist on Spotify global 2 years ago, and Peso Pluma was massive #1 in all the world on YouTube. And even still this year, with as big a year as Taylor Swift's had, like both of them are in the top 5 and just huge reach. But we're also seeing it like tequila is outselling, Jack Daniels or bourbon or traditional whiskey, and it's become the #1 selling spirit in America. Or like Modelo is the top beer. Like there is a cultural shift that's happening in America, and a lot of it is this like Latin genre explosion. So the fact that Mac Cafe wanted to get in with this brand and kind of really go deeper into Latin and tap into Latin music was exciting for us. And so as we looked at it, we wanted to find artists that are heat seekers or that are on the pulse. And we're constantly looking at this. We had some great ideas for this campaign, and we ended up landing on Lunai, who is just, a rising star, a young artist that's got a lot of growth potential, but also huge following and really brand friendly. And we shot the first campaign 2 years ago, and it did so well, outperformed other influencer campaigns and stuff that they had done, that they wanted to replicate it and do year two. So we went back into the lab with Lunai and did a second version of the campaign. But this time we took key learnings, and it's great when a brand has a long-term vision. We were able to tie it in to these big cultural tentpole moments, right? Like there's the social media holidays of National Coffee Day, which are big, conversation pieces. And the fact that we can allow this brand to be in that conversation by just being strategic about timing and about messaging just opens up all new layers of talkability. And then the same thing, putting this out during Hispanic Heritage Month, just again becomes a conversation piece where a lot of brands are in this conversation. A lot of people are looking at this, and all of a sudden this campaign is not just about an artist and a brand, but has all of these different layers to it. And then we got really innovative, right? We wanted to create an event experience beyond just the digital content. So what we did is we did a contest where we were going to fly Lunai fans into Miami to watch this sound check experience. And so he had a show that night at Live, and we allowed fans to come experience the show sound check. And so you're in there watching this artist check the sound, rehearse the songs, change the order, interact with the fans, and have, a cafecito with Lunai. We outfitted all of the Club Live with coffee, and we, did some fun bells and whistles and had some nice kind of pastries and empanadas. And we invited these fans and some press to experience the Lunai coffee experience with Mac Cafe. And it just added another layer and another level of talkability. And it's just an example of like, when you do this campaign, there's learning and there's test points and there's ways to do it even bigger and better the next time. And I think everybody felt good about this reinvestment with an artist, and also the fact that, we were able to be more strategic, but still impactful in culture in an authentic way that resonates with fans and resonates with the artist and helps the brand to just continue to grow to new heights and connect deeper with their consumers.
Jesse, Crown was a groundbreaking project that featured iconic figures like Kendrick Lamar and Tyler, the Creator. On reflection, what do you think were the key elements that helped the series resonate so deeply with fans?
Crown was interesting because it came into the market before a lot of these podcasts boomed, and especially before these live experiences where these podcasts, you could kind of watch these pods live. So we were, again, ahead of our time with this. And what made it really interesting is that these artists were coming onto our stage in front of their fans with a trusted journalist like Elliot Wilson, who they knew was going to, not make them look silly, but be able to get really good insights out of them. And they could tell their long form story in this environment where it wasn't like they were jumping on a Jimmy Kimmel couch, or, they had to drive around in a car and, sing for half of it, or, they had to eat extremely hot wings to be able to, really tell their story. This was a place where they could really give their kind of full experience and feel the fan energy and tell what was going on with them when they were making a project, when they were thinking about a project, in this really intimate way. And it just caught fire. Like our first one was with Kendrick Lamar. We did it at South by Southwest. It was just a last minute thing. He was kind of like a South by darling that year. And we could just see that the fans were eating it up, wanting to hear everything he had to say. And so as we started to say, okay, this has got legs, our first one was with Tyler, the creator, where it was like, we're going to call it Crown. We couldn't even get a venue, right? We had to do this at Highline Ballroom. They were like, is he going to perform? We were like, no, he's not going to perform. They couldn't understand that. So we only could get in there at midnight on like a Thursday. Tyler said, fine. We had to fly him in, and it sold out within minutes because the fan base was so rabid, and he was just telling stories in a way that you just never heard him speak. So fans loved it. Right after Tyler, J. Cole's team called, and it was like our third one was Cole, and Cole was like, I loved what you did with Tyler. I've got to tell my story. We want to do a similar situation. I had been working with J. Cole. I used to be his agent. I was working with him on the warm-up. Like, this was an easy play for us. And he was really excited to go on stage. And then right after J. Cole, we get an email from an obscure email address, a Mac email, and it's Drake. And Drake is like, I'm the biggest in the game. I'm going to do the biggest interview. I need to do this in the biggest venue. And we did our, third official one with Drake. And at that point, like, everybody was lining up. It was becoming a tentpole moment with artists, or at least becoming like an important part of an artist's rollout plan. And we did about 35 of them, everybody from Lil Wayne to Nicki Minaj to, Megan Thee Stallion. And then COVID hit and the world changed. And, ultimately we have this back catalog of all this awesome footage, and still think that maybe one day we'll bring this back to life. But the market shifted. And, it's fun when these things catch fire because everyone's calling you, and, it's a momentum, and you kind of rub sticks together and create heat. But timing is everything. And I know we've got these Crown Classics, and I know we've got a lot of interesting content. And I think a lot of more artists would still want to hop on this Crown stage and tell their story. We made it so it really felt like a big moment in culture. But yeah, we've been kind of dormant since the pandemic for various reasons, just reprioritizing other things.
Let me ask you, Jesse, you've expressed a lot of admiration for artists like JR, who use their work to highlight social justice issues. And given your involvement with organizations like the Resolution Project and Young Musicians Unite, and with your, Music for Good program that you did with Cotopaxi, how do you see the intersection of social good and brand partnerships evolving? I mean, I guess, do you feel that brands are becoming more socially conscious today than in the past?
It's become imperative, right? Like, the people, like the consumers, from Gen Z to millennials, just really, it resonates that you're doing good. It's not just like traditional capitalism in this day and age. People not only want to know that you're doing good, they also want to support brands and artists that are doing good. And I think that it's just kind of a real paradigm shift, where, like music and sports, it's a big passion project or a big passion point. The research shows when it comes to consumers and supporting brands. So yeah, I mean, if there's an artist that wants to do something on a kind of higher social justice level, I think it's interesting. And I think it also resonates in a big way. And for me, I just think there's a lot of great organizations that are out there to help and to kind of carry the message. If it's Resolution Project, which is supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs, like people with ideas that just might not have the same access to colleges and venture capital and all of these different opportunities, but they're totally competent and have visions and have ideas and need the kind of boost up to be able to get their ideas out there. That's an amazing organization that speaks to my heart as an entrepreneur and somebody that has had a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity, that this is a place where we can help people that might not and lift their ideas and their voices up. With Young Music Unites, look, I know music is so powerful and so impactful in people's lives, and to be able to learn to make music, it's almost like writing code to some extent. It's like training your brain in a discipline and a creativity that is so expansive. So Young Music Unites is out of Miami, where I am, and they're out there helping students to build out music programs in different colleges, in different high schools and elementary schools. And anytime we can impact students' lives and give them an opportunity to connect with music and learn about the power of music and express themselves through music, I'm all for it. So that's a really exciting one for me because it's in my backyard. It's thinking local, but it's got a huge potential to grow as it expands. But right now, like just making a big impact in Miami and the school system is something that I'm really proud of. And yeah, how it lends itself to a brand like Cotopaxi. Cotopaxi, when I first started working with them, the CEO got on a Zoom and said, "We're a mission first, product second." And I was floored because you're making bags and gear and hiking equipment and outdoor stuff, but really your goal with all of these products is to make the world a better place. And so the passion really comes through in the company, and that's what they're about. So to see a brand put their money where their mouth is and really more than anything try to help make the world better, and that's what they want to do with their product business, it's what I call a triple bottom line because it resonates with consumers. And so we partnered them with Global Citizen Festival, which just makes so much sense because that's another festival that's just doing social good. It's an awesome party. It's a great event, but it's at the core a mission to end global poverty. And, you know, it's really using music to have a global impact on making the world better. And so with Cotopaxi, with Music for Good, we had to obviously align it at its core to artists that are making the world a better place and to really lift up their missions. And it just was a unique approach because usually a brand wants to partner with an artist and, you know, maybe we'll talk about what they're doing. But really, like with Cotopaxi's plans here, it was about supporting artists that are making a better world, making the world a better place through music. And the program Music for Good just lends itself to supporting so many different artists out there. And, you know, the first artists that we did this with were Danny Ocean, who sings about the refugees from Venezuela and is really passionate about his hometown and his home country of Venezuela and the refugee crisis there, and just dedicating so much of his time, resources, passion, content, music to helping support those migrants or helping support the refugees. And so it's just great alignment because that's a passion project and a passion point for the Cotopaxi brand, supporting World Refugee Day and other facets of refugee activism. And so being able to work with Danny on this campaign was fantastic. Working with Tierra Whack, who is really into supporting the education world and Philadelphia's music and education and music programs. Someone that thinks local, but is just a huge global kind of voice or at least mindset, but really, you know, passionate about her block and where she comes from. And is able to make big impact there, to have her highlight her story and support a young artist that's making music and collaborate. We, you know, ended up licensing her beat, putting it into the commercial. It just became this self-fulfilling prophecy of not only helping artists make the world a better place, but also leveraging a brand like Cotopaxi to tell the stories where music is doing good in the world. And again, these things take time. Resonating and impacting and shifting culture doesn't happen overnight. I've seen this with time and time again with different campaigns. It's, you know, not just about, you know, a click to buy or, you know, social media optimization sell through or an influencer that posts something that's going to get you direct sales. It takes time to really make a cultural shift. But when you do, I believe that brands' KPIs are all met. And, this is where you could exponentially grow in marketplace and in customer sentiment. And so I'm excited that Cotopaxi really believes in this as not just a campaign, but as a program. And I think, look, this is something that's deeply aligned to their mission. And they understand that music is going to help them make deeper connections with their consumers. And so Music for Good is just an example of a brand doing social good while also working with musicians and artists and supporting them in their causes.
Well, I really love the fact, Jesse, that you do a lot of outreach in Miami, because that's where I'm originally born and raised at, Hialeah to be exact. And so,
awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that you're doing that, which is really, really fantastic. I wanted to ask you, where do you think, because, a lot of our audience are new up and coming artists that are just starting out, and they're obviously listening to the show for advice and hints and whatnot. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think needs to be in place for a new artist before they can start thinking about getting into brand partnerships?
They need to really understand their fan base, and they need to understand their brand and what matters to them. And then they need to be communicating that. I know it's not every artist that wants to think about what their brand strategy is, but they do need to be kind of signaling to the world that they understand brands and they understand their audience. And so if I was an artist, I would be looking at brands that they like or categories that they like. If they want to hike, if they want to, drive cars, if they're interested in certain kinds of alcohol, if they like certain designers or designs. It's important that POV matters. And I think an artist can, if they want to work with brands and they don't want to create their own brand, they can be authentic. I think authenticity really resonates about what brands matter to them, and they can kind of show their capabilities, because there is a world where you don't need millions of followers to do a brand partnership, especially in this day and age. Micro influencers, nano influencers, thought leadership are all extremely important. So I think an artist should really know what platforms they're strongest on. I think they really need to understand what their voice is wanting to say. And I think that they need to figure out what brands they want to collaborate with. And to be honest, they can start small. They can start local. If they want to, write a jingle for a, local partner or a local vendor that they like, that's cool. If they want to, tell a fun story of, do a kind of performance at a shop in their neighborhood, that's really cool. At this point, everywhere you go, it could be a fashion shoot because of social media. So there are so many avenues to be able to tell stories. And if you do a good job, it's not about your follower count. It's really about your content that can make it go viral. So if I was an artist, I would be looking at the calendar. I would be looking at tentpole moments. I would be looking at things that resonate with them. I'd be looking at brands that are in their reach. I'd be looking at brands that aren't in their reach. I'd be DMing brands that they want to work with, because, again, it's in some ways a numbers game. Number one rule of sales is, don't sell to somebody that doesn't want your product, but you can knock on 100 doors, a couple are going to listen to you, and even, a couple it'll resonate with, and somebody will give you a shot. So it's, if it's not you in particular as the artist that wants to do it, bring in people that can help you sell, and just be intentional about the content you want to make and, the ideas you want to express. And just know that a brand posting about you, it might not necessarily be a huge money maker, but it can be an audience builder. And think long term. Understand that this is not about an immediate result. It's about over time learning the craft, building trust with brands, building trust with your audience, and eventually you're going to get bigger and better opportunities, and you'll know what to do with them when they come in. And, just be sensitive to the fact that these brands They could be working with a lot of different artists, and if they want to be working with you or they want to be helping amplify your idea, that's an opportunity, and that it might be out of your comfort zone, but that's where real growth can happen. And I think, being clear about if there's things you want to promote or ways that the brand can help you, I think you want to really understand those things too, because again, what's going to work is the win-win-win. Brand has to feel good, artist has to win on this, and the fans have to win on this. So try to figure out partnerships that have that kind of three-way win in mind. And that feels like Yahtzee to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Jesse, I want to ask you, your company, Nue Agency, has successfully bridged the worlds of music, brands, and technology for over 20 years. How do you see this intersection evolving in 2025, especially with regards to, the rise of new platforms, shifting demographics and changing consumer values?
We live in these trends. We really believe that the trends are our friends, and we approach this there's three different really series of trends to look at. There's the macro trends, which you might not have control over, but that's, if we're in war, if we're in inflation, things that are going to kind of slow spending down, or opportunities, or just change consumer sentiment. There's macro trends that are important to understand when you're timing anything. And then there's the kind of tentpole moments. You can't necessarily control virality, but that it's going to be, Hispanic Heritage Month, or that the Olympics are going to go on, or if the World Cup is happening, or this is going to be the Super Bowl, or, Black History Month is taking place. So there's these kind of tentpole moments that you can kind of at least guess or know for sure that those are happening and be able to tie your message in there. And those are also kind of like, I think, on a macro level. And then there's the micro, right? Then there's these like things that bubble up. If it's brat summer, or if it's terms like demure, or, TikTok trends that are impacting and that are kind of hot moments, and talkability is all over it. And you can jump on these kind of moments and catch a big bump. And so I think it's important to understand, like, when these kind of moments are happening, if they align with who you are. You need to have your finger on the pulse and be able to move at the speed of the feed. And then there are these digital trends. These digital trends are super important, because if YouTube changes their algorithm, or is prioritizing shorts, or Meta is going to over-index on Reels, or LinkedIn is all of a sudden getting vertical video, a big boost on the platform. These are arbitrage moments in terms of attention. And so these are big opportunities to, capitalize on these digital trends, especially if you have audience, or if you're interested in certain platforms where your audience, it resonates with them. And so I think you kind of have to look at these three verticals when you're making a decision about how to be really relevant. And that's where the intersection of culture and entertainment and technology and brands all really kind of play together. You want to know yourself, and then you want to know the landscape, and then you want to be part of these conversations when they're happening and they align, because you're going to get a big lift, and you never know where it's going to come from. That's the other thing. It's kind of a numbers game in the social media era. It's not about scarcity so much. It's about consistency. You want the algorithm to lift your work up, and you want your community in a lot of ways, and these platforms to do the work for you. So you can get lucky out there, and your idea could catch, and you just want at that point to have the pieces in place to be able to be releasing more music, or selling products, or having a big press moment, or just capitalizing on when these things connect. Because there's just a lot of opportunity in this day and age with trends and forecasts and insight to impact. And I think it's an important game to understand, even if it's just a portion of your overall strategy.
Jesse, throughout your life, Have there been any books or films that have been especially inspiring to you, professionally speaking, that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I am a person that is just constantly listening to podcasts like this great one, or reading books and seeing films. So what would resonate probably most with me, I would say, are what I want to do is be able to be a more effective learner. It's not about goals. It's not about results. It's about process. And so one book that really rocked my world was Atomic Habits.
That's a great book. Wow. Yeah.
That one really kind of taught me a lot of the ways to think about how to incrementally improve a little bit every day. And through that, like, I really believe that compounding is the secret and the key to life. Compounding in all of its forms, compounding in relationships, compounding in knowledge, compounding in love, compounding in expertise, in strength, in wealth. All of that benefits from a long-term philosophy of doing a little bit better each day and setting yourself up for systems. So when you don't have the discipline, you can still be growing and learning. And a little bit every day over time makes a big impact. So that was a great book that I read. But again, my newsletter is always tracking trends or different stories or different conversations. There was just so many fantastic interviews and philosophies and books that came out this year. And so I like to read them and take notes on them and, try to integrate them into what I'm talking about, if it's in my newsletter or if it's on social media or anything along those lines.
Yeah, Atomic Habits is a great book. That's James Clear, and we'll share that in the show notes. I've read that book too. It's an amazing, amazing book.
What advice would you have for those who are interested in pursuing a career like yours, which is at the intersection of tech, music, and partnerships? What would you say to somebody who wants to pursue a career like that?
Information is so important. Look, I think research and understanding all the facets of the business, or at least what's coming in on a regular basis. If you read the trades, if you read them and take notes on them every single day, you will start to learn the players. You will start to develop a POV. You will start to, read the tea leaves and see the patterns. And that gets really important when it comes to dot connecting and pitches and strategy and information. So I do think you can give yourself an education just by being disciplined and, reading and taking notes on what you're reading. I also think that what you want to do early on in your career is attach yourself to as big a names or as most successful people as possible, because that will be a door opener and a vehicle for you to just have a case study of somebody that's doing it on the highest level. And it's really important to understand that, to take in what it's like to be successful early on, so you can start to envision that for yourself. And I always thought mentorship was important in an early age, but it's really not true. Mentorship is great, but I feel like peer mentorship is way more exciting. The people that are in the trenches with you, the relationships that you're forging, the conversations that you're having, these are going to shape who you are, and these are the people that you're going to end up seeing over and over again for the rest of your career if you're thinking long term. So I would treat every one of these relationships like that they can be somebody or something that's impactful, or something you can learn from, or somebody you can collaborate with, maybe not now, down the line. I really think dinner, not decks, are what get these deals done. Sure, you need to build the proposal, and it's a formality, and it's a great way to organize ideas. But a lot of these deals come down to somebody you've known for a long time, somebody that trusts you, somebody that respects you, somebody that sees your work, that's been introduced by another trusted source. It's such a relationships business. It's really hard to just kind of sustain if you're not kid tested, mother approved, and if you're not, if you're out here burning bridges and you're adding value and building community, I think it's a mistake. So I advise to connect with folks and to build partnerships and build relationships and build camaraderie and join activities. And yeah, I think it's a combination of being out there, being connected to great people, and also doing the work on yourself and consistently trying to learn and to grow and to improve, because, you're going to get your shot. And when you do, you want to be ready, right? When we call on you, when somebody taps you on the shoulder, when it's your turn to give a POV, that's a big opportunity. And you want to be ready to share that. And you want to be able to bring your unique, authentic, talented self to the table. And that means that you got to have your point of view, you got to have your insights, and you've also got to have done the work and understand the ecosystem so that you can really speak on it intelligently.
Yeah, you got to be educated.
Yeah. And I believe it was a perfect, what he was talking about. To me, it's that old adage, success leaves clues. So I think that's a great thing. Jesse, where can people best reach you? Is it through the website, email? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I'm a top voice, and LinkedIn is a great place to connect with brands. And it might not necessarily be a huge music audience, but I like that because you can be a unique player in this kind of sea of executives and marketers. And so I like LinkedIn. I also like Instagram a lot. It's visual. I think thing that I do every single week, which is kind of my love letter to the music business, is my newsletter, Beats and Bites.
Yep.
And that chronicles everything that I see that's happening in the intersection of music and brands that I think is worthwhile. It's kind of, for me, like going to the trends gym each week, because I'll scan 1,000 articles, I'll read 100, I'll pick 10 that I think are really relevant for this audience, and then I'll share that with a POV. So if you're passionate or want to learn or want to know, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening, Beats and Bites is a great way to kind of see what I think is important each week. And I think I'm also pretty accessible when it comes to brand partnerships and deals, when it comes to brands in particular. So if there are brand marketers out there that want to work in music or want to figure out how to do a music strategy, you can find me on pretty much any platform, and we can help your brand connect with all of these great artists. And I'm always looking for new thoughts and new partners and new ideas and new collaborators. So yeah, I'm pretty active on social. If you're not looking for me, you can't find me. But it's the newsletter is really kind of my every week, in your inbox, what's up with me.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, because I do a newsletter weekly as well. So I totally get that. And you never know, the far reaches of that.
To just come back on that, it's so fun, the newsletter, because you send it out into the world, and then you really don't know what's going to come back. But the serendipity is an important muscle. I feel like every time you go to a conference, every time you go to a concert, every time you do a podcast, you don't know, it's a portal to a new world. And so, yeah, every time we send out our newsletter, it's very interesting what opportunities and ideas and insights come back. So I agree with you on it. It's really fun to have a newsletter, and I know yours is fantastic, and I'm glad to be cross-pollinating with you.
Absolutely. Jesse, we want to thank you so much for taking the time. This has been such a fascinating and insightful conversation on so many levels, not only on music, but I think it really helps to give our audience an understanding of the culture and, more importantly, the landscape of today, which is, the values around music, the values around culture, and the values around brands, and how they intersect and matter to an individual artist or band really have changed. And I think you've given such profound insights into this so specifically. So we want to thank you immensely for taking the time to do it.
It was a pleasure. Really great to chat with you both. And again, this is an ever-changing, super dynamic industry. That's the part that's so fun and exciting, is what's happening today. Like, you never know what's going to be around the corner, and, you know, you want to stay on the pulse and, you know, and move at the speed of culture if this is an area that matters to you. So yeah, this is something that we do every day, and we eat, breathe, and sleep it, and we love it. And it's something that's really exciting in terms of the dynamic natures of music and how it really permeates all facets of culture and can change the world.
We couldn't agree with you more. Thank you once again.
Thanks for having me.
I am so glad that we had this conversation with Jesse.
Yeah.
I knew intuitively this was going to be a wonderful conversation, and it was everything I expected and more. You know, we just got an incredible deep dive understanding of not only the world of putting, you know, deals together of music and brands, but of the specific underlying currents that determine what works, what doesn't, and why. And all of the elements that are the reasons for each one of them, the values, the core understanding of who that product is for, who your audience is. And that was one of the things that I thought was so interesting. You know, he, in the conversation, Eric, he stresses the need for artists to understand their fan base and their brand values, you know, signaling their interest in brand collaborations. You know, some people are very against that. You know, I mean, it's less and less. I mean, like, you know, you look at people like Neil Young, who would never endorse a brand in their life. That's rare, but what's more important and what we've seen happen is when people get involved with a brand that it's not the right fit for that particular artist.
Right.
And how the wrong artist with a product, it can be
could tank a brand.
Yeah. Or it can tank their career. I mean, I remember one time when it was right when Eric Clapton got sober and clean in the early 80s. And he had a tobacco company, because I guess it was called Cigarettes and Alcohol was the name of the album, sponsor his tour. And my God, the media went crazy over him about that. They really crucified him. But that was a different era. Now you could never get away with that kind of thing. They would absolutely bury you. Like, what are you doing? I mean, and you would amplify all of the inauthenticity of doing something like that for a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, and you can destroy your creativity. Another one that I thought was an interesting one, if we want to look at real examples, was how, and it's a risky one, because when you get involved in endorsing alcohol products,
right,
as a music artist, it can be very, very sensitive. Kid Rock, okay, endorsed Jack Daniels.
Right.
They were one of the that endorsement totally makes sense.
Correct.
That is authentic to who Kid
his
Rock
lifestyle,
is.
the
And
lifestyle of what Jack Daniels represents. It's
And
all of those elements that
and what his audience represents.
Exactly.
And the values that they have. That's completely authentic to him. So I think understanding that need, I mean, and Jesse really went into the nuances of that and why that is so important, not only from a brand consideration, but also from brands that want to, you know, get involved in social change. And you know, it's not just about, you know, their brand and buy my stuff, but also representing
like an
something.
Apple that takes those different risks with those different commercials. Like
And
they
social,
had.
Yes, absolutely.
Another area which is continuing on the thread of the brand partnership is how he mentions about how brand partnerships have become vital in artist profitability, citing examples like Dr. Dre's Beats, which was an amazing success, and Rihanna's Fenty. You know, this is an area that, you know, you as an artist, it may be preemptive to be thinking about that, but, you know, even thinking long term, what are the kind of things that you want to get into? What other revenue streams do you want to develop and create for yourself? And it's something that's not far-fetched to be thinking about now, maybe a little premature, clearly, depending on what, you know, station of life you're at in your career. But it's something that you should be thinking about. Like, what products would I align myself with? What products would I not? Me personally, I wouldn't align myself with any alcohol products. And it's a weird thing because I'm a hard rock person, but I don't drink. So that's something that I've made that commitment that I would never do or get involved in anything having to do with cigarettes or vaping or any of that stuff. I do not want to be associated with that. But that's just me as my story. Yours could be completely different. You know, maybe if you're a hip hop artist, that is maybe the lane that you go down. It really depends on who you are. So I think it's something that is worth having that conversation early on, even if it's with yourself, just an internal dialogue of what kinds of products and things you would align yourself with.
Absolutely. And many artists, and I've heard many people talk about this, have brought up that whole element. Would my audience approve of this particular union? That's absolutely crucial, because what it does is that goes right to the heart of authenticity and truth in who I am as an artist.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.